Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq, with daily insight on the Nasdaq-100 Index, or the NDX, which is made up of 100 of the largest domestic and international non-financial innovative companies listed on the Nasdaq stock market. The NDX has been the barometer for U.S. large-cap growth and also one of the best performing indexes over the last decade and a half, not to mention one of the most liquid index ecosystems in the world. Joining me this afternoon for the update is Shawn, Cruz, Manager of Trader Services at TD Ameritrade, to discuss Nasdaq-100 performance and how policy can impact the markets as quickly as we have seen just within the past 30 minutes. Shawn, welcome back to Trade Talks. And of course, you see that composure change really quick in terms of leadership when you get these kind of headlines.
Yeah, so I'm actually trying to keep track of it as it's happening right now, but it looks like there was some hopes that maybe we were going to be able to get some sort of stimulus done at least before the election, if not sooner. There was more meetings scheduled today between Speaker Pelosi and Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, and it looks like that those negotiations are falling apart and really had the market come off a cliff here, so to speak, as soon as that announcement was made that the president was going to encourage people in his administration to not worry about negotiations until after the election. So I think that's really what caused the market to do a very sharp and pronounced reversal today. And I think a lot of the trades and a lot of the things that I was looking at until about 30 minutes ago all sort of reversed themselves on this news as well.
Yeah, it certainly has. And I just can't imagine people who are dependent on these stimulus checks having to go, well, at least, almost 4 weeks into the election. Then you have to go through that entire process. Then you have to get both sides of the aisle to renegotiate again. I mean, you could be looking at 2021 until people get these needed stimulus checks. So, you wonder what the motivation is there. But prior to us coming on, semiconductors were leading the way in the Nasdaq-100 this afternoon.
They were. So even though there was a little bit of weakness in some of the other tech names, I don't think it's anything to be overly concerned about. And once again, something else I was looking at was actually the Russell overtook the Dow off of those March lows, which I thought was very interesting. And a lot of that ground's been made up in the past couple of weeks as maybe investors start to look towards some of the more value-oriented names and maybe some of the financials as well. But at least on days like today, where you didn't really have the tech names completely falling apart, but you still had some pretty pretty pronounced green shoots in the semiconductors. NVIDIA is actually having its GPU conference this week. Started yesterday, goes through the 9th. I think there's going to be some pretty interesting headlines that will come out of that. And I think a lot of investors are going to try and maybe position some money in areas where they think someone really is sort of pushing the envelope or has a new product they're offering that's going to be coming out that can really move the needle. But I think for now, you're seeing analysts still remain fairly bullish on semiconductors. NVIDIA itself has had a handful of analysts come out and raise their price targets just in the past couple of days. So I think the semiconductors are going to be somewhere interesting to watch, even though they've had some incredible runs this year. I actually think there could be some more news coming out on the week. So definitely an area you want to keep your eye on.
Yeah, and you've also been paying attention to yields as well, certainly reacting to Powell's commentary.
It was. And so one thing that Powell was saying, he wasn't just saying we need stimulus. He wanted a pretty sizable stimulus package. He said if it wasn't big enough, then it actually would run the risk of one, putting the economy even a little bit further behind the eight ball, and it would make any recovery either much more difficult or not as robust. So that was really, I think, where you saw a lot of optimism coming out that one, we were going to get a stimulus deal done sooner rather than later, and that it was actually going to be pretty sizable. So that showed up in quite a few different areas. I think the yield story was the most interesting in that you saw the yield break above that 75 basis point level. It's sort of been trapped there, say going back until around early August. It was not able to break above that level. Popped higher on maybe expectations for growth and maybe even some inflation. And if you even look at the inflation break-evens, as the 10-year yield moved 10 basis points higher, you almost saw inflation expectations move 10 basis points higher right alongside that. So I do think that was the market pricing in the potential for more inflation in the future. But like we said, in the past 20 or 30 minutes, that's more or less reversed itself and we're down below that 75 basis point level. So it will be interesting to see what we hear for the rest of the week. I don't necessarily think we've heard the last of the stimulus discussions. I think there will continue to be some more headlines coming out around that, and I would actually look for just more headline-driven volatility. And that's not to say the market's going to completely crash. And when I say volatility, I mean the market could break one way or another. We could see these gains come. We could regain some of these losses we made in the past 30 minutes very quickly if we do get some more positive, optimistic headlines.
All right, Shawn, thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.